Today we're going to be looking at some Dynasty Fantasy Football trades. We're going to be testing the market, looking at some player values, looking at some recent news, and how we should react and try to predict the market on these players. Before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now because we're looking at the player values every day. We're looking at rookie drafts every day. We're trying to help you win your Dynasty leagues. The information's right here and it's free. Click that button. Stop missing out. But big news yesterday. Big news. First off, Stefon Diggs going to the Patriots. And he's coming back from the knee injury. We're not a young buck anymore. We're 31 years old. We're paired with Drake May. And there's a lot of rumblings with this. Good, bad, and different. One thing we can easily say, older wide receiver coming back from an ACL. Father time is ticking. He is like a grenade on a Dynasty roster. If you're not built for an asset like this, obviously, if I'm rebuilding, I'm like, no. And if I'm rebuilding, probably should have already been gone midseason last year. But now you might have another opportunity. Looks like the market really liked that. The chart really poked up really quick. On top of that, last year, we were able to command 7.9 targets per game on a new team, 15.2 PPR points per game. So he's still able to be productive in football. He's still able to command targets. He's still able to get separation. That is a good look, but we do know Father Time is looking at us right in the face. Value is still okay. It really depends on how your roster's built and how you want to do it. But on top of that, last year, almost a 24% target share. ADOT dipped 8.7. A lot of short targets. Drake May can push the ball around. Drake May could push this. What's another narrative we're going to be looking at for this is potentially Patriots go offensive line, not wide receiver in the first round, and they're using this as a bridge to get them through the 2025 season. So another thing we can look at this, wide receivers we like on the depth chart, Kayshon Boutte, Javon Baker, Jalen Polk, whatever you like, whatever your flavor is. I'm not selling you on any of you guys here. Even Demario Douglas, because he's proven to be productive. Kendrick Bourne's done some stuff. Kayshon Boutte was getting a 90% route participation rate last 8 to 6 weeks of the season on lockstep. Demario Douglas was getting the targets on lockstep. Kendrick Bourne was an up and down flyer. Javon Baker was an upside play as a rookie. Same thing with Jalen Polk. They are also very patient with their young wide receivers, and they have a history of that because we saw that with Kayshon Boutte, which we might see that with Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, and this might be a catalyst to that as well. They might be looking at their depth chart saying, you know what, we're better than what people think here. Let's go offensive line. Could be totally wrong. That could be T-Mac and Stefon Diggs right there. Or it could be something totally different off the wall. We know how drafts can get, but be open-minded to that. Stefon Diggs showcased talent last year. However, 26th among wide receiver target separation. That's actually not bad. The fact that we can command almost a 25% target share. Training camp last year, we gelled quickly with the Houston Texans. He's been working out. I do have workout clips I guess I could show you guys that the knee's looking good, doing squats, doing lunges and everything else. I think we're going to be good for the start of the season. I don't think you need to worry about Stefon Diggs. Crafty route runner. For fantasy, I think he can give you some upside, but just know that the downside's coming sooner than later. He's a falling knife due to the age, due to the recent injury history. But this is a good landing spot for him to give you something. I do not expect multiple wide receiver 1 weeks. I look at this as a cheaper chip. A chip you should have bought into, though, a month ago. You should have done that. I did say that, hey, he does have some potential to play a little bit more at the NFL level. He does. At a high degree for production for fantasy is a different story. It's a landing spot that we can gel into to get that. And he might showcase that for a good 6-week window. And really depends on how you're built. If you're not built to win your league today, then you're probably not built for Stefon Diggs. Tomorrow, Russell Wilson going to the Giants. So that's interesting for a lot of things involved. Jameis Winston obviously is going to be the backup here. However, last year, Russell Wilson was dealing with a calf. And he missed a lot of the season. He missed a lot of training camp. And that could spring its head or anything else. This is a good 1-2 punch of jabroni quarterbacks that could get a team by. But we're wondering, how's that going to impact these wide receivers? Right now, if you're looking at 2 QB Superflex leagues, Russell Wilson pretty cheap, but we have the Malik Neighbors effect that could buoy his production. He did have 4 QB1 weeks last year. Production-wise, on the low end too, he wasn't really falling on his face too much. So if you want to moneyball it, get cheap, or even be cheaper in redraft, that's something to pay attention to. Looking at George Pickens. Remember, Russell Wilson came back week 7 against the Jets. He got his wide receiver 1 weeks with Russell Wilson. He honestly, when playing with Russell Wilson healthy, he wasn't flatlining too much. His points per game is PPR 13.14 versus 10.22. His receptions a little bit lower, but the yards are higher. The opportunities more deep balls downfield, more YOLO shots. Potential to get you 1,100 yards in a season, 6-7 balls caught. So a little bit more versus Justin Fields. That's what we're seeing there. However, we had some instances sprayed in there with injuries and whatnot. Looking at Malik Neighbors is a totally different story. Malik Neighbors, different level, top tier wide receiver, 35% target share off the rip as a rookie last year with bad quarterback play. I think what we know with Russell Wilson, he will spam it to the top wide receiver. I think he still gets spammed. I think he gets opportunity. And his ADOT was 9.5, but he's also getting a lot of the lower targets. He's getting the deeper targets. He was getting all the targets. He was getting banged up so much. He was getting so much workload. Wan'Dale Robinson, 25% target share. I look for him to be fine. I look for him to be in the target share around the 20% range. I look for him to spam those 2 wide receivers. I look for that to happen. I think Malik Neighbors is fine. I don't look for anybody selling. I look for just people trying to talk on social media. I think Malik Neighbors is going to be okay, and I think Russell Wilson will spam his stud wide receiver. I just saw it happen with George Pickens. Spammed him up a few games. He was able to bounce up and get some good weeks. He had 4 good fantasy relevant weeks out of 6, technically, from week 7 to 13. The back end of the season, you know how that is. Russell Wilson, I think we can get more out of Malik Neighbors, but Darnell Mooney's a guy I wanted to talk about. I had him loaded to talk about as the first guy before that news hit for today. Darnell Mooney, cheap wide receiver, and we like cheap wide receivers. More of like a stash play, cheap option, but if you're looking to win your league, you're looking for cheap wide receivers now. When I look at this wide receiver class, unless they draft a wide receiver in the first round, there's always potential for that. But there's a lot of potential at edge. There's a lot of potential in the defensive line. There's a lot of potential at other positions at linebacker that is right in the mix there. That it makes it hard to make that case when you already got Drake London and you got some other hosses on board. Darnell Mooney here. Wide receiver 55, 50-some range. Cheap get for a 1-year rental. Maybe 2 if you're lucky. But 12.1 points per game. 2 wide receiver 1 weeks. People were loving Darnell Mooney in season. They were loving him. He was not face planting too often. He was hitting double digits a fair bit. Top end wide receiver 2 in a lot of weeks. And you want to look week to week, not just how they average, like 12.1 points per game. You're like, that's fine. That's okay. But we can get some spike weeks in this offense. We know we can do that. Michael Penix, that's going to be a variable to work with. But that's kind of priced in right now on the cheap, and you're looking for a cheap asset that can help you win now. 6.6 targets per game. We can rack up the targets. Looking at target share, 21.3% target share, 8 out of 12.4. So we're racking up targets. We're a good wide receiver 2 on this team. Expect volatility, but that 21% target share, which I believe we're going to maintain fairly well, that's going to be an indicator that you can get okay production, and that ADOT is going to get you those spike weeks. So Darnell Mooney, a cheap wide receiver, if you're looking for that to help you out on some bye weeks, or just a cheap wide receiver to help you out in general for your lineups if you're just trying to patch together on the cheap. Maybe you're middle of the road, and maybe you want to see the first few weeks of the season, and you want something at wide receiver to help you get by, to help you get started. This is a cheap way to do it. That's another option. I'm just trying to be creative for you. That's why I'm doing videos like this every day. I'm just throwing out options. You just take what you like. But this is another scenario where you can jump on it. Again, we do have a little bit of an injury history here. Older wide receivers that usually tend to have a little bit of one, but that does not mean that's going to impact us in 2025. Also, when you're looking at the values here, we're kind of in no man's land. And we're also in the area of value. And I'm not talking one-for-one, tit-for-tat with any player here. Just in a macro, not in a vacuum here. That we're kind of in an area where everything's volatile and risky. Where Darnell Mooney is in an offense where he's commanding targets. He's getting an opportunity. That could be something that can come at you. On top of that, when you look at his contract, it looks like after 2025, they might be letting him loose or restructuring or something. So you might get more than 2 years out of him. But I'm just going to start off looking at him as a one-year rental. But T. Higgins, we signed that massive deal. Now looking at him from a different angle here, wide receiver 15. He's held his value as a top wide receiver. Slowly dipping down, but that's how it should be with age. But as a fine wine, you're looking at a wide receiver here. 4 wide receiver 1 weeks, 3 wide receiver 2 weeks. We've talked about it a few times, but 9.2 targets per game. So we're getting good volume here. But what I like to see here is a 24.9% target share. The A-dot dipped. But remember the injuries. The A-dot prior was 12.8 in 2023. But with a 17.9% target share. Injuries that season as well, if I remember right. Maybe I'm wrong. But still, A-dot's typically higher for T. Higgins than 9.8. Usually it's fairly into the double digits, 11, 12. Usually at 20%, pushing 20%. 25% is a little higher. So that being said, 25%, and we get back to, let's say, an A-dot, even 11 to 12 range. We're looking at a guy that can give you more results than expected. People are stacking bingos. He does have bingo privilege when it comes to dynasty market. So that's something to pay attention to. A hard guy to buy in the dynasty streets. But still, we're just covering the profile and the numbers here. Injury history right below me. Look at that. It's there. It'll probably always be there off and on throughout his career. He is an explosive wide receiver that gets downfield. Maybe it doesn't rear its head as much. Now we got some money here. Looking at the contract, there is a potential out per spot track after 2026. Maybe some finagling happens. But you know what? That's the NFL. 2 years from now, that's a long time away in NFL terms. That's like a lifetime. That being said, you got definitely 2 more years, possibly a lot more with him, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. See how that works out. Looking at where he's at, he's valued with the top wide receivers. You got to value him with the top wide receivers. Him or T-Mac? Him or T-Mac? That's my question that when I looked at this. Him or T-Mac? Who would you rather have on your team if you could swing it? Rome Odunze, wide receiver 17. And the reason why I was looking at him yesterday when I was putting this together is when I was looking at Rome Odunze, I was looking at the previous Bears before all the changes. And I was expecting, hey, good wide receiver, developing, quarterback developing. We got a lot of variables here. I expect good volatility, up and down play. And then I expect that to improve going forward. Now, things got to change because there's so many changes. So I'm expecting at wide receiver 17, if you don't like this wide receiver class and you want to get younger wide receiver, this might be a guy to look at. I don't expect anybody to sell him, though. I don't expect anybody to be getting rid of him, though. The tide has turned. It has turned huge on Rome Odunze. Look at the target share. We pushed almost 20% with an A-dot of 13.8. You know I like to look at that A-dot, and I know I like wide receivers with an A-dot well into the double digits. And when you got double-digit A-dot like that, especially past 12, and then your target share is pushing 20, which Keenan Allen's not there. There's no wide receivers of consequence in this draft. No wide receivers of consequence in free agency unless you really want to make a trade, which you got Rome Odunze. You got DJ Moore. You don't really have to right now. He's going to get a target share above 20%. As long as he's healthy, A-dot's going to be above 10. That has a good marination of fantasy production. We got a better offensive line. Caleb Williams, another year in. DJ Moore, similar thing, but hey, Rome Odunze. Look at the free agency additions down there. Look at that. We're adding to the offensive line. We're getting stronger. We're getting better. We're upgrading there. We got Ben Johnson now. We heard that beat. That dead horse has been beat by the fantasy media, but still something to look at here. But look at where he's valued at. Still good price tag if you want to buy in. Still very expensive. He should be expensive. First round wide receiver. Showed a little promise there. We got a lot of additions with the Bears here. I do not look for him to be very fluid in the market. The time to buy was in season last year where he wasn't very productive. But hey, if you do not like this wide receiver class and you want to get at wide receiver, you're not too interested in the running back class, which I don't understand how that would be. And you do you, this could be an option for you. I'm just throwing that out there. Courtland Sutton. Maybe you want to draft that running back. You want to get cheaper, but you want that production for the now at wide receiver. Here you go, my friend. Almost a 30-year-old wide receiver who gets spike weeks, deep ball city. You chasing deep ball city here. You got a veteran. That's something you want to look at. Productive with Bo Nix. Bo Nix going into year 2. Courtland Sutton, as long as he's healthy, he's been getting deep targets. The injury history was pretty rampant earlier in his career. Last year, we put it together. And we have 5 wide receiver 1 weeks, 2 wide receiver 2 weeks. We're commanding 8 targets a game. But not just 8 targets a game. Just in the big moments, we're getting 12, 11, 10, 10, and a bunch of 9 spots out of him. So we can blow up. We got some upside. We almost hit 30 points against the Raiders in week 12, 23 against Baltimore, 20 against Kansas City week 18. But a lot of people play on week 18 because week 17 has turned into a week 18. So a lot of people are starting to switch to week 18. I know this because I do content then. A lot of people are turning to that. You wouldn't believe it, but a 25.1% target share. Target share is up there. Not elite. I consider elite pushing 30+%. 25%. Good target share, 8 off 13.2. That is what you want from a wide receiver if you're chasing production, if you're trying to buy cheap production. And Courtland Sutton, even if they draft a wide receiver, just think about the wide receivers in his range. You're looking at Luther Burden and Mika Igbukah. Think about their roles with this team if they draft them. So if they draft them and there's a hit on Courtland Sutton's stock, that might be a time to swoop in if you're looking for a 1-year rental. If you're looking for short-term production, to get it even cheaper. Because when you're looking at a guy like Courtland Sutton, his role's not going to be tampered with. Those wide receivers are not going to tamper with his role. And when it comes to target share, it's going to affect it minimally because they're still going to use him for those deep shots. Guys that will be affected, especially with a Mika Igbukah or Luther Burden, definitely a Devon Vele, maybe even Troy Franklin. However, Troy Franklin, when he's on the field, he gets targeted on 22% of his routes run. I believe, if I remember right, from studying from back in week 16, 17, it's just Bo Nix has that rapport. Courtland Sutton is cheap opportunity for deep ball city, and we're seeing that contract-wise not for long with the Broncos. Not for long. He's expensive. Would not be surprised they do something different with that, but they got a lot of space. They got a lot of room. Courtland Sutton is that wide receiver that's super cheap right now, but not like tremendously cheap. He's also a pivot if you want to get younger, but he's a hard guy to pivot from to get younger. You kind of got to take a hit on value. That's just common sense. Why would I give up my young asset valued same for an older asset? That's common sense in trade negotiations. It's like the art of war there. That being said, you got to be creative when you're looking at it in that front. DeAndre Swift. A lot of questions with him. When I was looking at him, I was looking at the running backs, going down the list. That caught my eye because the one thing about the Chicago Bears, we're looking at the first round, and Ashton Genty has talked about a lot. There's a chance they're built to draft him. If that happens, what's your thoughts on DeAndre Swift? I want to hear that right now. What are your thoughts on DeAndre Swift? Because I'm going to just give you all the thoughts, honestly. 12.6 points per game last year. We had a good run from weeks 4 to 8. And then after that, ho-hum, got you some RB2 weeks. That was okay. RB41 right there in value. Opportunity 17.9 a game. So we're getting workload. But honestly, when you look at DeAndre Swift, is he a running back that you want to give 20-plus opportunities anyways, or even 17 to 20? That being said, when you think about that, top 15 in targets, yards per reception 5, routes ran 8th among running backs, opportunity share 7. So if they make that move and they draft the running back, high probability they do in the draft. Maybe not even first round, second round, third round. I think second round they got multiple picks, or third round they got multiple picks in day 2. More than 2. They can really strike a move there. And this is why I do all these mock drafts and I play it like a video game, pretending I'm a team. And sometimes just taking an oddball player here because they fell down the board and they're better talent. The position wells, once you get to that middle of the second round to that early third round, they get kind of weird. They get wonky. Third round is always wonky in every draft. But they're in a position there, or if they're watching me talk, if they did, they may wait on Ashton Genty, but they're in a position there to get some good value at running back. And they're also, if they do that, they may even double tap the position, because this is a good draft to do so. And I believe there will be some teams that do that. DeAndre Swift, when you're looking at him, though, last year, 959 rushing yards, 3.8 yards per carry. Had 2 seasons with Ben Johnson. His best season with the Lions, though, was in 2022 with Ben Johnson there when he was the offensive coordinator. 389 receiving yards, 14 games, 552 rushing yards. Often injured with Detroit. So there's 2 narratives here. Ben Johnson's like, fuck this guy, he's always been injured, I do not want him around. Or he's like, he had my best season in 2022 before we traded him away. However, they traded him away. They got rid of him. But Jahmyr Gibbs, I think it worked out. That being said, that he still may like to use him to some capacity, especially in the passing game. You got your Thunder and Lightning with whatever they want to do if they make that deal. Maybe you catch him at the value dips and you swoop in and you get a cheap running back to patch over as a patch over running back. Not an asset. I do not see him gaining much steam unless he gets traded, because that could happen. Maybe Ben Johnson's like, we traded him before, let's do it again, let's move on, let's patch up running back, let's just kill it with this draft. Maybe that happens. I told you I was going to give you all the deals. You're like, I don't agree with this take, then I give you another one, because honestly, takes have feelings and I don't have feelings. But we have an out on this contract in 2025. That's an indicator that they could potentially do that in the draft on draft day. Maybe we get to day 3 and that happens, and he's with Dallas or something crazy like that. That could potentially happen. But you're looking at a cheaper running back that might get affected by some negative news here soon, that you might be able to swoop in and maybe have a drywall patch and get some receiving production out of. But that's what we're looking at today. We're looking at some values. We covered 7 players instead of 5 because the news hit, but still, more is always better. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next video.